This is episode number 64 of the Homeowner Show. Whether you're DIY or looking to hire, we're here to help you find the best information and options for you and your home. My name is Kevin Hackett, and here with me is Craig Williams.
Hello, and welcome to the Homeowner Show. We're glad that you could join us today. Yeah, everything's going good, man. How about you?
I didn't even ask you.
I know you're going to ask.
I didn't even get there yet.
I felt that impulse coming from you. Like, Kevin's going to ask me how I'm doing. I'm just going to go ahead and preempt him and just let him know I'm doing okay.
All right, fine. I'm good too.
Didn't ask.
And here we are, folks. Off to a good start. Number 64. Here we go.
We've been here a couple of times.
A few.
Yeah.
It feels like a few.
Hitting it on autopilot.
Yeah. No, I hope not. I hope not.
You're not phoning it in?
Not yet.
All right.
I'm close.
Okay. Time to upgrade Kevin.
Yeah. Well, man, I want to talk about something that you did recently.
That I did recently?
Yeah.
All right. Did it like come out the official police blotter or?
Well, we can't talk about some of those things.
Okay.
But you just recently went to a pretty cool weekend. Your company sponsored this, but
yeah.
Beyond that, one of our former guests put on a pretty big event this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys, man, what episode was that?
I don't know. Probably in the mid 50s.
Something. Yeah. It was like, I don't even remember what we called it. It was like that time we talked about blacksmithing or
forging.
Forging. Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Jacob came on, the contestant from Forged in Fire. They had this huge gathering over at Southern Star Brewery for, which just sounds like a really bad idea, selling knives at a brewery.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think there was like 23 contestants from that show. And so we got to meet all these guys and hang out with them and see their knives. And some of these guys make incredible stuff.
Yeah.
And like, there's really like a lot of sophisticated blades, and then there's like some really simple ones. Like one of my favorite ones that I saw was this guy made a twisted handle knife out of a railroad spike.
Really?
And it was gorgeous.
Huh.
I mean, and like the spiral on the blade, and then there was no leather on it. It was all metal. And he was selling it for like $50.
Wow.
But like then you saw some that were like $2,000 blades, and like they had these really intricate designs. And the other cool part is, if you remember when Jacob came in, he brought that big sword that was like almost 6 feet long.
Yeah.
So most of the guys there had a piece from the show that they brought with them
that they'd made on the show. Cool.
And there was some really, really cool stuff. And it was a fun day. They did a live competition where they all had to make a knife, and I think they actually used railroad spikes that day.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we had a booth. We had a sword in the stone for the kids to come up and try and pull out and get their picture made with. And so that was a lot of fun. But the coolest thing is there was this guy there named Cowboy Szymanski. If I'm butchering that name, I apologize, Cowboy. You're a really cool guy. Your name's just hard to say.
Yeah. Why couldn't he be named like Cowboy Bob?
I think it was Szymanski. He had some really, really awesome knives and some leather tooling as well. But he had this booth set up, and he brought all his gear with him, and this box of horseshoes. And he had all the horseshoes cut in half. And so for like $35, you could come up and he would take you through the whole process of making a blade. And you would make a blade with him. And then when you're done, it would go in a leather pouch and you'd walk it. So for $35, you walked away with this really cool knife that you made.
That sounds like a steal.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I set my daughter up and I was like, hey, go make daddy a knife. And so she did. It was, and she had a blast.
This is not your younger daughter.
No. That would not have been...
We don't let her near fires.
No. Or sharp things, or really just anywhere that there's potential violence. But yeah, so I mean, it took her 15, 20 minutes. They heated it up. I mean, she's sitting there on an anvil hitting this red hot glowing piece of metal and hammering it out, and she's having a blast because I mean bet. She can. What's cool about the horseshoes, if you've ever worked with horseshoes, like they're pretty malleable. They're not like a hard steel or anything like that. So like you heat them up and get them red, and you smack it with a hammer, it's gonna move and change shape pretty easy. And so that was big fun for her to actually see that work.
Nice.
So it was a really cool event. We got lots of cool pictures. I'm sure if you stalk me on Facebook, you can find some of them.
I stalk you all the time.
I know.
Cool. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was a blast, man. We'll definitely do it again probably if they invite us.
Sure.
So it was a good opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
So, but today we have a really cool episode. This is actually like something that I think a lot of people have requested from us to actually talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain things that, like, whenever you think of the homeowner show, you think of things that you do around your house.
Right.
And some of the people that we've interviewed, like, there's certain things that they're kind of given, right?
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, plumbing was super early for us. We did plumbing.
We did 2 plumbing episodes already.
Did. We did leaks and plumbing. We've done roofs. We've done, we finally got around. We were like, oh man, it took us forever to do air conditioning.
Yeah.
And there's some of these things that's like, man, these are just kind of common things around the house. But one of the things that we haven't gotten to yet for one reason or the other is electricity.
Right.
We've just not had an electrician on the show yet. And the wait is over.
Yeah, because we weren't going to talk about it because we're morons.
and we're not dumb to try to do it ourselves and figure it out. So.
We're smart enough to know that we're stupid.
That's perfectly said. You're so wise. A wise moron.
Can turn a phrase.
Exactly. Well, yeah, let's bring these guys in and let y'all introduce yourselves and tell us what you do.
Well, I am Weston with Newbuildselectric.
And you're an electrician.
I am an electrician. Yes, sir. I just recently started my own company. I've been an electrician for 12 years now. Started fresh out of high school, and here I am 12 years later still being an electrician.
Awesome.
It's not as bad as it sounds, but
yeah. Well, who you got with you here?
My wife Courtney.
Hi.
She's the motivation behind the scenes. She keeps everything going, keeps the advertisements going, and everything else.
I try. I don't have to as much now. I mean, we have a lot of people that have been awesome and jumping in and tagging us. And really, I'm just the cheerleader. I don't do nothing with electricity. He makes me change light bulbs now and then. But luckily, I have him for all the other questions around the house. But I'm super excited to see how far he's come because we've been together since we were 15. Well, he was 16. So we've been through this
cradle
journey.
robber.
Oh, man,
We're the same age. Whoa. But yeah, so we've grown together, and I've just seen him once he started in the as an electrician straight out of high school, and it was pretty stressful through the union and doing commercial, and he's worked at the plant, and finally, when it got time to take his master's test, watched him study forever and ever, and so many more hours, and all the work he put into that and all the schooling. And so I'm so proud to see, his business flourishing, and it's a great opportunity to be here and get to, talk about it. And I know he's kind of more of the quiet type, so might have to pull some questions out of him because he's over there like, I don't know. But no, I'm super excited to see how New Builds is coming along and growing and really
Yeah, and you've probably actually, learned a lot just by helping be a part of the business and answering questions from customers and having to do something. You probably know more than you realize.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I'll help them every now and then trace problems or something, but I do a lot of the invoices or just typing stuff up and getting back to customers. But it seems like a lot of our customer base, or his customer base, is really, it's case by case. So a lot of times people have questions about lights or about plugs or about this and that. And now I'm getting to the part where I'm like, that sounds like a ballast. I'm like, oh, I know what that is. But really, it seems like a lot of troubleshooting is case by case. You never know, what their house, situation is or what's in the wall. So a lot of times I'm like, I'll have them call you back.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned you were straight out of high school.
Thank you.
And what really kind of got you started in electricity? Because there's a lot of avenues that people wind up starting certain things. But what was it for you?
So for this one, I was actually working at Academy making $6 an hour, and a friend of mine would join the union making $12 an hour, and somehow our paths crossed, and he was like, hey man, you want to make some real money? Come over here. They have great benefits, and you get a raise after every every year of school that you complete. You get a raise. It was a 5-year program, and at the end of it, you're making 30 plus an hour. So I started there with the intentions of just doing it to get by, and stuck with it because it just kept getting better and better, really.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was never anything I ever intended on doing with my life, but it's been good to me.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think a lot of times there's people that bounce around to things, but they never. It's like they're
Stick with it or stay with it.
Yeah, it's like a, what do they call that? It's like a good at a lot of things, but not a master.
Jack of all
trades, but a master of none. Yeah, and so I think it's good, and I think that speaks a lot to your character and the type of person that you are. That you're willing to stick it out. So that's awesome, man.
Well, I will say my father-in-law played a big role in that. He was at the same job for since he was probably 16, and he's still there today.
Nice.
So the first time I got laid off in the union, which is a common thing, he didn't understand why I got laid off. And so I was like, well, I might as well stick with this now, because if I quit and change it up, I'm not going to be I'm going to look bad in his eyes. But I mean, that wasn't the main reason. Also, it was a job, and as we grew as a couple, it financed it played
Helped
out
us through those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Especially getting raises.
Yeah. So
nice.
you said that you were working. Was that the job you were working at a plant?
Through the union, they work everywhere. I worked at airports, a lot of Memorial Hermann hospitals. I did work in some plants in LaPorte and Pasadena.
Yeah.
I tried, before I started studying for my master's, I tried to venture out and get some other kind of more than just commercial work under my belt, so that whenever I did take my master's test, I had a little bit of solar, a little bit of generators, wind power. Mm-hmm. I took classes on hydropower and stuff like that, just because a master covers everything.
Right.
But I didn't want just a book knowledge. I wanted to have hands-on as well. And after all that, I'd rather just stick with commercial and residential.
Yeah.
My hats are off to those guys who do more than that. But it's definitely not for me.
Is just a layer of complexity that's just not like what a residential or commercial building's like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, that in 10 years, most of it was all commercial, and just venturing off to something different, it would take at least another 5-6 years to where I would feel comfortable.
Yeah.
In those areas.
Well, so what's the, like, and I've heard you say a couple of times you had to sit for your master's license in this. What's the big difference between someone who has that and someone who doesn't do that or have that's working with electricity?
So, as a journeyman, the requirements from the state are 4 years of being an electrician, which is 8,000 hours is what they call it. Mm-hmm. And the test is hard, but the requirement.
So, real quick, what are all the levels we're talking? So there's like master, journeyman,
and then apprentice.
Okay, so this is an apprenticeship system.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So the one I went through was the JATC in Houston, and it was through the union. It was a 5-year apprenticeship program, and when you finished that, they had a big party, and you turned out, and you got to take your journeyman's test. But so the journeyman's test, it's pretty hard. Mm-hmm. They don't just give them away to anybody. It's still a 4-hour test. It's 100 questions, and it's not easy. You have to study the code book. So for the master's test, they require another 2 years of being a journeyman, mm-hmm. and then the test is the hardest test I've ever taken in my life.
Yeah,
you have to know the book through and through. You can't take any kind of notes with you. So I guess the biggest difference between a journeyman and a master would be the code knowledge.
Okay.
There's just things that I would have never thought about that they required me to learn. And you have to be ready for everything. It's not just, as a journeyman, someone else has the headache of giving you the task, telling you the problem, and telling you how to fix it. Mm-hmm. As a master, you're the one figuring out the problem and either telling someone else how to fix it or fixing it yourself.
Yeah.
There's nobody for me to go ask, basically.
Well, and I know in our industry, there's certain levels of people that you have to have in your business in order to even operate that business. And I assume you kind of have to have a master person in order to even have an electrician company.
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you can't get a contractor's license, an electrical contractor's license, without having your master's license and insurance for the company.
Right. Yeah.
So
pretty important part.
there's
Thank
yeah,
goodness.
right, exactly. And so I don't frown on it, but there are a lot of people that do unlicensed electrical work.
Yep.
Sure.
And I will say it all day. There's many things that anybody can do that is electrical work.
Right.
And a lot of times those people will do it cheaper than a licensed electrician.
Yep.
It's just how many times do you want to pay for it if it's not done right? And if it's not done right, will they have the insurance to back up their work?
Yeah.
And sometimes even when it is done right, electrical, it changes. People say it's simple. People say it's the same. It's different case by case. It's almost never the same on some of the old houses because you never know what the last guy did, which is ironically why I have Newbuildselectric. From start to finish, if I put my name on it, I can guarantee the work. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that's an older house and I'm coming back through, I can't guarantee the last guy's work.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I still come through. I don't have a problem adding to or changing anything, but I preferably, I sleep better at night when it's just something that only has my name on it.
Yeah. Well, so because I mean, I would imagine most people listening to this probably own an older home. What is it about older homes that makes it such a challenge and so difficult to do some of the work that you do?
So, I mean, it's hit or miss. I've been to older homes where you open the panel up and it's like, wow, this guy actually knew what they were doing.
Right.
And then I've been to some where the house has been sold and bought and sold and bought, and everybody's uncle was a electrician of some sort, and there's been 10 different people in the panel, 10 different people in the attic, and you just go up in their attics and you have no idea. There's many possibilities why they could be having the issues, but you just have no idea why the last guy did what he was doing.
Right.
And why it would work for 10 years and then all of a sudden decide to mess up, which is often a lot of things that we hear from homeowners is, well, why did it just now start acting up? If it worked that way for years, and then I tell them it was done incorrectly, and then they want to ask, how come I'm telling them it needs to be changed, but I can't explain it because, I mean,
You don't know who did the work.
Right.
And you don't know what type of work they did.
Exactly.
And you can't verify the work that they did. And you can't put your stamp on something else that someone else did.
Right. And
Yeah.
so for me, my hardest part is in my head, I know why things work the way they do. I'm not a huge talker, and I have a hard time getting words out. So whenever people ask me to explain myself, it's easier for me to just be like, hey, if I don't have someone else with me, I'd be like, look, I can show you, but to put it in words, it's not.
It's more complicated than just saying this and that.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't, there's not always a way to put it in words to make it make sense. Like I can't tell you why something worked for 20 years this way and now it doesn't.
It's like talking to a doctor when they use all their jargon. It's like, well, we're trying to explain it in just regular terms, but honestly, this is this kind of panel and blah, 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 blah. And then you start getting all these terms mixed up, and he tries to tell me, and I'm like, so that's this? And he's like, no, that. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Sure, sounds good.
Well, so I think that brings up a good point, and something that I'm curious based on that is like you mentioned, the licensing, and you mentioned the amount of hours you put in, and the testing, and the insurance, and all that kind of stuff. What kind of liability is a homeowner under if something goes bad? And let's say there's an electrical fire. Maybe it doesn't burn the house down. Maybe it just, electrical fire in the kitchen, and the kitchen's messed up. So they call their insurance, their homeowner's insurance. Is there any liability based on the fact that they didn't use a licensed electrician to do the work?
So if it was a brand new house, they could probably put it back on the builder. But if it's an older house, unless they were the original owner of it, I think they would have a hard time pinpointing
Who did what?
Or pointing fingers at who did what.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that I'm hearing you say. Anybody can do certain things.
Right.
I can even go out, and we were talking about this before the show. I mean, I can change a breaker in a panel. It's really not that difficult. But at the end of the day, I have to understand that I'm the one who's responsible for that, and ultimately, I'm responsible for who I hire too. If I hire someone to come out and do it, and they don't have the correct licensing and those sorts of things, then I'm probably still liable for that, because I'm not going to be able to put it back on them. Hey, this is the work they did.
Right.
They don't have any insurance for it, right?
Right. Yeah. So, and that's happened several times where I've done something in people's detached garage far away from their house, and 6 months later they'll have an issue in their house. But I was the last electrician there, so the blame is directly on me, whether or not
It has anything to do with what you
exactly.
did. Yeah.
So the only real way to be out of that is at the end of on all of my invoices, I have a little small disclaimer says, hey, what I did was this and this. This is working while I left. And that's about as much as I can guarantee. Now, if they ever did want to press the issue, I'm not sure how well it would hold up for either end. I mean, I might even come out on the losing end because I was the last one there.
Sure.
But yeah, ultimately, it's just, it might be cheaper in the short run to hire somebody that's not licensed, but if there ever was any issue, it would pay off just a little bit extra to have somebody that is licensed and insured.
Okay, so how do I find out if you're licensed and insured, and how do I verify that?
Man, so several people, and it's not awkward at all. Apparently, I look a lot younger than I am. People ask me all the time, so how do I know you're actually a master electrician? Or how do I know that you have a contractor's license? So the contractor's license go hand in hand. You actually can't even apply for one until you have your insurance.
Okay.
And they both go on a yearly basis. You have to pay insurance up front for a year, and you have to pay the contractor's license up front for a year. But man, if they get uncomfortable when you ask them to present it to you, I would probably call somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Because
something else I've learned is that a master's electrician have also had the background screening. They can't get their master's unless they've had that background check. And they clear for that way too, which is, I feel like that's pretty good to know.
Oh yeah, come to in people's homes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then also coming with that, I know there's a lot of times where he'll be called out to pull a permit, in the city of Houston, it seems like everyone has their own set of codes and rules and things that
so
they
that
need.
is something else. Recently, I had somebody who pulled a panel. Anybody can call into CenterPoint and schedule a disconnect. They don't necessarily require anything to pull the meter off, but to put the meter back on, they require a permit. And some parts of the city of Houston and just different smaller towns or whatever. But so a lot of times people hire guys to change out their panels, but when it comes on time to permits, either the guys have already got paid and left the homeowner there without being able to get their power back on, or the guys are calling their friends frantically trying to get someone to pull a permit for them. And at one time, I mean, I never did any work without a permit, but I would call buddies for jobs and ask them. Never had any luck, and now I understand, but I'd be like, hey man, can you pull a permit for me on this job? And now being a master and seeing what it took to get there, there's no way I'd pull a permit for anybody else's work.
Yeah.
And even if I visually inspect it, it's just putting my name on something that I didn't do.
Well, and for people that don't really understand, I mean, like, why would that be such a bad idea for you to do that?
Well, basically, so the permit would have my name on it, company's name on it. If the homeowner did have an issue, they could sue us for it, and the city would come after us also.
Right.
And after so many strikes with those kind of issues, I would actually lose my license.
Yeah.
Which I made the mistake of. I pulled a permit for a friend of mine who had another contractor work on their house, complete rebuild. They're realtors. This was their first house to flip. And the house was built in the 50s. They did a whole rewire on the house. The contractor got the money and left before it was ever time for inspections. So my friend called me unknowingly and said, hey, I just got kind of screwed over. Can you help me out? So I pulled a permit for him, and thinking everything was good. It wasn't 2 days later, I get a call from the city of Houston inspector. Did you even come out here? Did you look at this work? Did you do this? Did you do that? This isn't ready for me. Why are you wasting my time? So then I actually went to the house, and this was my rookie mistake. The house was horrible. Nothing was up to code. It was crazy that, I mean, I understood why the inspector was so mad.
Right.
And so it took us about 3 months to get that house up to code.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's tedious stuff that you would never think about. Like the tub jacuzzi door was in the way of some, what was it?
So they had an inside bathtub
Right.
that was considered a jacuzzi.
Uh-huh.
And there was no access for it, which makes sense. There's supposed to be access for the maintenance guy to be able to service it or whatever. They're supposed to be able to see the power going to it. They didn't have any of that, which it was finished tile work in there.
Oh gosh.
And then the panels, none of the breakers were up to code. They're supposed to have AFCI and GFCI breakers, which are horrible breakers, but City of Houston requires them.
Yep.
They're like $80 a piece, and 9 times out of 10 in brand new houses, 6 months to a year old, most of my calls are to change those breakers out.
Really?
Yeah, they're super sensitive, and the homeowners just don't want to deal with them. So I personally, I'll just recommend what they can put in, and I don't do it myself because it is what the city requires for whatever reason. But I can tell them, hey, a regular breaker will do the job. And if you were 2 counties over, they wouldn't even require you to have that.
But going back to the house situation, just they didn't have the right contractor to do the job. So then when Weston got there, and I heard quite a bit about it, just so much, he didn't even know where to start because it needed to be just redone completely because everything was out of code, everything was wrong, and it was outlets didn't have covers or this and that, and they left it like that. And so, when people were trying to, we got to get our house ready to sell, well, I mean, we, see inspectors all the time, is it Ricky, I think? She posts about it all the time, just this electrical thing or this, and they're catching them. Whereas as homeowners, you're just kind of like, just put a Band-Aid on something, or we'll just kind of put this over here and it won't be caught. Well, when it gets caught, then you got to redo now all your tile work because of the one little plug that was under there that you had to get to.
Yeah.
Or it's just crazy, all the tedious little details and these things. So if it was done right the first time, man, I felt really bad for them because.
Well, and that's not even to speak ill of contractors because
Right.
Contractors a lot of times are just trying to do whatever that homeowner's paying them to do.
Oh, yeah.
And they're probably like, I want tile all over this jacuzzi tub, and didn't realize that they needed access. And just so everyone knows, I mean, if you have a tub, you need access to that drain, that some form or fashion. I mean, even if there's no electrical in there, it's good to have access in there for all kinds of reasons. And a lot of people don't realize that.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be from
The outside.
I mean, because if you've got a pier and beam house, you can get to it underneath possibly.
Right.
But that being said, I think it really goes back to something that you mentioned earlier, and that is that you need to know the people that you're hiring. I mean, don't be dumb. Make sure that you're asking questions and make sure that you're seeing their license. Call references. Don't just look at reviews, although look at reviews. Look at reviews. Call references. Do everything you can before you hire someone to come out and spend hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars for some of these people to work on your home. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence because at the end of the day, you said 3 months. 3 months, and these are flippers.
Yeah.
So these
That's
flippers,
money lost. Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
way
Every
lost.
single day that they don't have that house on the market, they're losing money. And so and it's the same thing for you as a homeowner. Even if you're not flipping your own home, you're just trying to live in it. 3 months. I mean, you already paid for it. Now you got to pay someone else to come do it.
Or you get ready to sell and realize this is out of code or that's out of code, and you just spend all the money updating the kitchen or appliances or something, and now you're spending money on the little nitty gritty electrical stuff.
Exactly.
The last thing a flipper wants to put on the listing is as is.
Right. Right.
Which is your only option if you don't want to pay to have it fixed.
Yep.
So, man, I'm curious, with an electrician's license, because I know with some different people that we talked to, it's Texas specific.
Yes, sir.
Is what your license is? Could you go to Ohio and do what you do, or are you kind of locked into Texas?
No, so Texas does coincide with a couple of states.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you exactly which ones.
So there's reciprocity in some states with
Yes, sir.
Texas. Okay.
Yes, sir. There's other states that cover more states than just Texas.
Right.
And I don't know how we got screwed to where Texas only covers like 3 other states.
Right.
But there's not many options.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's good because I mean, like you sort of specialize, right? I mean,
Right.
like you know how it works in Texas, or if you're in California, you might know how it works in California.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
So like in our stuff, I mean, like I can't do anything outside of Texas. It's a whole other license. There's whole other laws and regs. I mean, it's a nightmare. but yeah, so like sometimes, and I think we forgot to ask Jehu if his license is good outside of. I think his is just good in Texas as well. But
Yeah,
he used to do stuff in Tennessee, so
Yeah.
I think it's different for every industry.
Probably so.
So like if I hear you right, like if you would have gotten your license someplace else, it might have covered more states.
He thought
Yes,
about
sir.
doing that.
Okay.
It's hard enough just
I
doing
did,
the
but
test itself.
they're getting to where now they're taking away contractors' licenses completely. I think they just did it with plumbers.
Really?
Yes, sir. And they're trying to do it with electricians. But thankfully, they haven't done it yet because then they're just going to be unlicensed.
Anything goes.
And I'm not saying anything against unlicensed people because there
Sure.
are people who can.
that are very knowledgeable and
Right.
tedious.
But yeah, eventually it'll just be tough on the industry altogether.
Now, is that a way? Are they like deregulating the industry? Is that kind of what's going on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's like that. That's kind of like what people who are in the business, like you are. I mean, it's weird because like in some ways you want there to be less regulation because it kind of frees you up to operate your business the way you want to.
Right.
But at the same time, it allows losers and morons to jump on the
Basically.
train and try and act like they know as much as you do.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's hard for a homeowner because we just told them make sure you're verifying licenses.
Yeah.
Make sure you're. But I guess at that point, the best thing to do is you have to start heavily
references.
relying on references and reviews.
And that's
sure.
one of the first things I tell everybody whenever I give them a price. I'll tell them, hey, look, check reviews, references on my Facebook. And I said, if at any point during this job you feel like we're not giving you your money's worth, then you can kick us out. You can bash us on Facebook. You can tell your friends and family.
That's how confident he is. in
So
his-
far, it hasn't happened yet, which is great. But I mean, no, most of the time everybody's been it's been real nice. I haven't had any issues with any complaints, luckily. And
I mean, I think that goes to show his work, though, because, I mean, I've seen his work, and he's always been, not OCD, but he's very particular about things around the house. And, I'm the type that if I take off my socks right there, that's where they're going to stay until tomorrow. And he's very, like, clean as you go. So when all of his electrical work that I've seen, he's so tedious. And we'll be eating at a restaurant, and he'll look up and say, oh, that looks hideous. They should have moved those wires, and that doesn't look good like that. And he wants everything to look really good.
Well,
so that kind
I
of bounces.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that
I mean-
bounces to what you said about like check the work right after
right.
they're done. And you look in his panel and every little wire is perfectly in place. And then you see another electrician later on post a picture of a panel and I just look at it and I'm like, oh boy, because I just know he's dying inside thinking of all the wires that are stuck and stuffed inside the panel. And so I definitely, from an outside perspective, I know what to look for in a panel or in, what your outlet should look like, and sheetrock not be chipped on the outside of it. And I mean, even new buildings though, man, those are the worst lately. Like he's been going to a lot of new houses that have just been built within the last 5 years.
so one of the bigger problems is one master can employ endless amount of people underneath them.
Right.
And most of the bigger companies I worked for, the masters lived in California, Florida. They never saw each job.
Right.
And when you can employ, so anybody can get online and get an apprentice license for $15 a year, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
We don't
And,
recommend that.
Right. Well, these builders come in and they hire anybody. And so, yeah, they're working under a master. But the bigger companies, they're just throwing the stuff together, and it might meet the city specs. If
Enough.
I mean, if the new houses ever even get inspected, they do, but it's not as as bad as
Thorough.
It's not.
yeah, it's not as thorough as it should be. So then you get these brand new houses where they're just thrown together, not really even by professionals, just laborers, $10 an hour, who are told by maybe one journeyman on the job. And so basically,
And they're beautiful homes.
Yeah.
The ones he's been in, $300,000, $400,000 homes.
but yeah, it's just what really went on. So
Yeah.
smaller companies, well, I can't even say that. You just have to, it goes back to references, like know the builder,
Yeah.
check their backgrounds, maybe ask for some of their work references. It just, there's a lot of questions to ask.
Yeah, attention to detail makes a big difference because, I mean, in our kitchen, it drives me nuts because the light in the middle of our kitchen is not in the middle of our kitchen.
Oh my gosh, that is so common.
And honestly, I bet that it would be in the middle of the kitchen if they would have put the box on the other side of the beam. You know what I mean?
Right.
If they just would have used one side of the stud instead of the other, it might have been in the right place. I mean, it's that close. But it winds up making it to where we have to make a choice. Either our table is off center of the room or it is on center with a light. And it's like we have to make that choice right now, or I got to get somebody out there to move the box, repair the sheetrock, paint. It's just it's a process. And so attention to detail makes a big difference
From the start.
From the start.
Right. Actually, we just spent the last almost week and a half on a house that's less than 2 years old. The homeowners just moved in, and that's exactly what we were doing. Moving lights over a half an inch, 2 inches.
Really?
Yes. This lady had a home designer come into her home, and that was the first thing she pointed out. In one of the bathrooms, the lights was a half an inch off from the center of the sink and the mirror. And I noticed it. It drove me crazy also.
Yeah.
But she went around and she just pointed everything out to where the man's wife was like, yes, we have to have this done right now. This is going to drive us insane. I was like, hey, we can do it, I don't do sheetrock, but I know a couple of great sheetrockers.
Sure.
And so we go in, and it's pretty simple. There was a couple of them where there were studs right in the middle, but I mean, now it's coming back through. If you do it from the start, it's super easy. It's a little bit more complicated after their sheetrock up, but it can be done.
Right.
And it still looks nice. And now there's no more just something that catches your eye that it's not going to bug you the rest of your life, knowing that, hey, this is off center.
Yeah. So what do you do when you come across a situation where the mount for that light needs to be there and that there's a stud running right through the middle of the wall? What do you do for that?
So they have what we call a pancake box. I think that's actually the real name for it also. It's about 3/8 thick. It's just the depth of the sheetrock. Mm-hmm. So we cut a hole out in the sheetrock, and it mounts to the stud, and then you just put the wires through the back of the box so that it's pretty much like a flush mount to the wall.
Yeah.
And then basically that's what we do. If not, then sometimes we might chip it a little bit out of the stud.
Yeah.
But it's not common. And
Sure.
if so, it's not like anything that would damage anything or nothing like that.
So totally fixable.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So question, first house I ever bought, walk in, after we bought the house, I knew one of the first things I wanted to do was change the outlets out in the house because it was an old house built in 1945. All of the outlets were original and they were all 2-prong outlets. And my deal was so many things have a ground on them now.
Right.
And so I wanted a 3-prong outlet. So, inexpensive.
Such a diva.
I know. Like 50 cents for an outlet, right? I mean, they're
like that, yes,
they're
sir.
super cheap. And so I'll go out and buy a bunch of them. My brother-in-law's an electrician, had him come over to the house. And the first thing he said was, I have no problem putting these in, but they're not going to be grounded. And I said, okay, I don't even know what you mean by that. And he said, well, you can put a 3-prong outlet where there was 2 wires, but it's not going to be grounded. And so I said, okay, well, I've been in a house before that had old 2-wire to all the outlets, but they were grounded. He said they were probably arced. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they jumper the positive over to make it grounded.
Oh my.
No,
Yeah.
I can't say. I've heard bonded maybe, where it would be from you can bond it at the panel and then jump the neutral to the ground.
Okay. Well, so or maybe it was jumping the neutral to the ground. I said positive. Whatever it is. This is where a smart electrician really comes in, because he said it's super dangerous to just.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. He said,
I don't know what you're talking about, but if you're jumping anything, I'm
Yeah.
not sure that it's a good idea.
Yeah, he said, but it's a common thing that people will do to look like an outlet is grounded, and there's lots of reasons why you might do that. I mean, one of them is we were having cable installed, and before the cable guy would install the box, it had to be in a grounded outlet. And so we had two options. We either could run a new wire back to the box that was grounded, or jumper it. And a lot of people will just jumper it. And it is, first of all, it's not in code, but it can cause a fire. And there's a lot of different things out there that...
Cable.
Right.
I mean...
Yeah, for cable. Yeah, and so this was a number of years ago, before cutting the cord was an actual thing. But I think that it's those types of things that I wouldn't have known. I just knew that people did that at one point.
And that's where you might call somebody and they just do it for you, and you think
Absolutely.
it's fixed and it's a Band-Aid, and then later you're like, oh man.
So curious, was that house aluminum wiring?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I wouldn't have touched that house without redoing the whole house for you.
Yeah. And so what we did was we just hooked them all up as, 2-wire, and they weren't grounded. None of them were grounded. But it still allowed me to put a 3-prong outlet or a plug into it. It just wasn't grounded. So what we wound up doing is we just wound up putting a surge protector on anything that we felt like we needed protection on. So TVs, things like that. We just put a surge protector on it.
Nice. So now we actually do offer a full home surge protection. So it covers your appliances and your electronics, and you don't have to do it individually anymore.
Okay.
And actually, Square D backs the product with a $70,000 warranty.
Nice.
So when you get it, it comes with all the paperwork, and if you ever need it, you submit it to them. It's like a 7-year warranty of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Those are installed on the breaker box, aren't they?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you wind up having a surge that, so I don't know how much it costs to install one of those. I'm sure it's different depending on the amount that you need for each house. But so if a surge comes through and it breaks, is it just a simple switch to turn it back on, or is it something you have to replace at that point?
It'll take a few small surges, but when it gets a good one, it fries it. So but it's maybe a 30-45 minute install process, and depending on whether your panel's outside or inside, or even if there's any room for your panel, it does go on a 2-pole breaker, so there has to be at least 2 extra spaces in your panel for us to install it.
Okay.
But price varies depending on how big the panel is and how much access it is for it. But
Sure.
I mean, by the time you go out and buy a bunch of surge protectors,
right,
probably worth it.
And so
It's worth it.
Well,
not to
usually
have to buy
about
new
between 400 and
appliances.
$450.
I was going to say, what is the average cost on one of those? So that seems pretty reasonable.
Yes, sir. I know most companies charge about $800.
Okay.
The material cost is somewhere around $200.
Yeah.
So it's about $200 for the install, depending on how easily accessible your panel is.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this on all these new smart homes. So
Yep.
they have these smart homes with all this technology. You can lock your door from your phone and turn on your cameras from your phone and everything. And
Yeah, one
They
good
should come
power
with a
surge
surge.
and that kind of stuff is fried.
Yeah.
that would be
I get a lot of calls after storms where people say, "Hey, my power did go out, But most of the time, they don't put two and two together. Their microwave will stop working and their dishwasher will
it's the
stop
plug.
working.
That's what they get for having a microwave.
Right?
Oh, here we go. Thanks a lot for mentioning a microwave. All right, Craig, 30 more minutes. Here we go.
I get a full 30 minutes on
I
my
guess
microwave.
that's how long it takes you.
I mean, I am kind of curious.
No.
Okay.
All right, keep going, please.
Well, so, I mean, one of the first things that we tell them usually when something like that happens is, do you have a home surge protector? Or was your power recently out? And most of the times they'll be like, yeah, our power did go out. So we'll come out and see. And a lot of times the plugs will still have power. It's just the electronics and their appliances are just completely fried.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I haven't had anybody who's ever called me and said that, your surge protector didn't protect our home or we don't have these issues anymore. Well, no, several people said that they don't have issues with their breakers tripping after power surges or with just their appliances going out or messing up anymore.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you, we had a situation where our work just the other day where a weird power surge happened. There's a lot of electrical stuff going up on in the sky that day, and the lights in the whole building flickered for about an hour and a half. And obviously that's not okay. But at the end of it, there were three things that wound up getting fried. But one of them was the oven. It was a range. It was an oven stove combo. And when you tried to turn it on, the oven, it just wouldn't turn on. And it kept giving you a code. You go look at the code, and apparently there's an electrical panel in there that's called a memory panel that it wouldn't allow the door to lock. Well, even whenever you're just using an oven, you don't need the door to lock. Only if you're like cleaning it, right?
Right.
But whatever it was that function that was saying wouldn't work. And so therefore the oven wouldn't even turn on at all. And it completely fried the oven. We turned in a claim to the energy company, and they actually accepted responsibility for it. But all that being said, you're right. Like there's electrical stuff inside that can get fried that if you would have just had it on a surge to begin with, you're not having to go out and buy a new oven.
Right. Yes, sir.
$450 is less than what most ovens cost.
Right.
Especially if you get more than one thing that goes out at one time.
Yeah,
Right. It's definitely less than TVs.
Well, yeah. No, I can actually speak to this one. Our insurance company actually recommended that we have one put on because it won't surprise anyone. This house has been hit by lightning twice. And so the second time it hit it, I think it did like $7,000 worth of damage.
Oh my goodness.
I do know that some homeowners insurance companies will lower your rates if you have a surge protector.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
sir.
That's what he said. He's like, look, if you put in a lightning rod and a surge protector on your panel, we can lower your rate.
Where can I get a lightning rod, sir?
Yeah.
Amazon.
Those are not cheap, by the way. Yeah. But yeah, and so all I was going to ask you, because, and I don't know much, but these are terms that I've heard bantered around. What would be the difference between like a lightning strike and like a brownout?
I've never heard the term brownout.
See, I hadn't either, and it was like what the way someone described it to me was like if the power sort of drops and you kind of get like that, like when your AC won't come on kind of a thing, but like there's still power going through it. Someone called that a brownout to me, that like it's kind of like at a lower voltage or something that's coming through the panel.
So,
I'd never heard of it, so I was like, I didn't know if maybe that was because like could have just been that guy didn't know what he was talking about.
That sounds like a surge. Just like a weird surge in and of itself, doesn't it?
it does sound kind of like a surge.
Yeah.
The difference, I know, so they have capacitors that help with the charge of AC units and bigger things that are turning on so that it doesn't just pull all that power at once.
Yeah.
But in comparison to a lightning strike, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Surely there's not much. I mean, lightning strikes have got to be like the worst thing in the world.
Well, like I know one of the ways you can tell that your house is like probably not set up right is when the AC kicks on, like the lights sort of dim.
Oh yeah.
You know, and this is what happened in our house was like the AC was already on, and then everything kind of just like dimmed for like an extended period of time, and then just came back up later on.
So is that one of those deals where you're like, my house dropped a brown one?
Yeah.
That was kind of what, again?
Something you
You use the word again after
Again,
that?
yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Well, no, because like when we bought this house, and like, because it's hard to imagine that things could have been worse, but like the way that the property is, because there's 3 separate buildings, right?
Yeah.
And so each building has its own breaker box.
Sure.
And so there's the 3 breaker boxes in each building, but then there's an external breaker box that's the main breaker box that feeds all the 3 breaker boxes on the property.
Okay.
So that would be something. Maybe the service was overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
So if maybe there's like I don't know if you have a 400 amp service that feeds all 3 houses, or
Man, I don't
200
know.
amp service. So a house your size should have at least a 200 amp panel on it. And if it's a 100 amp panel, sometimes they do get overloaded, and that would cause something like that if you have the AC and even just a couple of things running in a house of that size.
Like nothing would surprise me, right? I mean, like when we bought it, the main line coming out of the main breaker box was just laying on the ground.
That's not normal?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Just checking.
No, everyone. There should not be electrical lines laying on the ground. So, especially none that carry that much. I mean, like that's like a death wire.
Yes,
I mean,
sir. It
I don't know
should've-
much, but like that's bad.
It should have either been buried or overhead somehow or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we ended up getting it put through conduit and
Right.
like it ought to be and all those kinds of things. But like just yesterday, the power company came through and they were doing their tree trimming and all that kind of stuff. And they took the power line down off the lines and just laid it across my driveway
Nice.
and left it there. Like they cut the trees, they dropped the line, and then they just left it in our driveway.
Oh, they never picked it back up.
No. And so like another company came through, and it was, I think they were like I think it was actually Suddenlink that came through, and they came up the driveway and they're like, "Hey, sir, do you know that there's a power line laying across your driveway?"
No, we didn't know.
And I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." And they're like, "Would it be okay with you if we picked it up and like put it on the thing that goes over your driveway so you don't have to drive over that?" And I was like, "That would be amazing."
Right.
Wait, Suddenlink did something for you for free?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, there's shocker.
Could have been.
Well, that brings us up to a question that we actually had one of our followers ask on Facebook, and that was, what do you do whenever you come across an exposed wire in your home?
So, being an electrician, I have the right tools. Most of my tools are insulated. That allows us to work carefree with live wires that are exposed. But just for a regular homeowner, they sell electrical tape at Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
They sell tick tracers at Home Depot, and they sell wire nuts at Home Depot. The first thing you want to do is put some sort of electrical tape on it.
Yeah.
And that way you can touch it and it won't shock you. And the second thing would be to figure out which breaker turns that wire off or on. And that does require something we call a tick tracer. They're about $20 at Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
But we also call them widow makers. So I can't say that they're 100%, but they're 80%. And they light up, they make noise if there's power on there.
Okay.
And if you don't trust it, feel free to give it a little touch, if you're feeling crazy.
Yeah.
But no, so that's primarily what we use. And so just handle it with respect. It's nothing to be scared of, but know that it can shock you. They say 120 will kill you, but it's just the most common. So that's why there's most common accidents.
Right.
But it'll wake you up. Just handle it with respect. I would suggest at least turning some of the breakers off, if not the whole panel, just one at a time, figuring out which one it is, and then safely tuck it back in the wall whenever you put a wire nut on it, or call an electrician if you want to avoid all of that. Yeah.
If all else fails.
Well, yeah. I mean, like if you're uncomfortable at all, if it freaks you out, don't mess with it.
No,
Right, yeah,
It's not worth it.
Yeah. Well said.
Not worth it.
Do you like a lot of the new technology that they're coming out with, like switches and plugs and all these kinds of things? Are they more complicated for you, or do you think that they're actually pretty cool? Or
So a big thing for us right now is dimmer switches.
okay,
A lot of guys or a lot of wives, women see it, and they just think, oh, this is the greatest thing ever.
Right.
What they don't know is that not all lights are dimmable,
Right.
and they have to be compatible with the dimming switches. And so we've put them on new houses where the lights were supposed to be compatible with dimmers, and the lights flicker, and they're not compatible.
I've heard this is an issue with LED lights. Like
It is.
they flicker quite a bit if they're not the right light, if the switch is weird or
I've been back to one house 3 times now because same issue. For a little while they worked fine, and then whenever they went to dim it, the light started flickering, and it was for a few seconds, and then over a period of like a month, they just got to where they didn't even work with the dimmer switch.
Yeah.
And those were brand new lights that we put in that clearly said on the box compatible with dimming switches.
right.
And that was 3 different switches. But so
But really, it's weeding out which are the best brands and best things out there.
yeah, so now I mean we have one brand that we stick to, and it works with at least 6 different switches. So it gives the homeowner a choice of switches because they don't all look the same. They're not all the same. And
Are you talking about the bulb, the brand of the bulb?
so
The
it's
switch itself.
the switch, and well, so yeah, I'm sorry. The LED lights, they're like the recessed cam lights,
Right.
and I couldn't tell you the brand off the top of my head,
Okay.
but we order them from the supply house, and they just work great with everything that we've installed them with so far. But yeah, so a lot of the times, just the homeowners, they don't understand why they can't have one installed. And it's because either the light bulbs might not be compatible or the light fixtures. So it's disappointing when you tell somebody that you can't do something for them without having to do something else. I don't like to be a salesman,
Right.
and I'm not at all. I don't want my guys to be salesmen. I'm not at all going to tell somebody that, hey, you have to do this for me to do that. But also at the same time, I don't like telling them that there's something I can't do.
Right. So if I'm hearing you right, the bulb has to be dimmable, the switch has to be dimmable, and the fixture?
So if it's an LED fixture, then those usually say dimmable or not dimmable. Well, they won't say they're not dimmable, but if they are dimmable, they will say that on the box.
Right.
And then they do have bulbs that will fit regular fixtures that work with dimming switches, but it's hit or miss. It's not always guaranteed that they're
Right.
going to work. Some fixtures are just made to be turned off and on. There's no in between. But
And there's some brands, like there's some things you can go cheap on around your house when you're remodeling and refixing stuff, and then there's some things where you want to invest the extra $3 or $4 per light
right,
for
and
a longer lifetime or lifespan.
so the ones that we found, the ones we were using were like $25. The ones that we found that worked are like $30, and those are actually not. They're pretty high quality lights. So just for the little bit extra, and I don't mark up materials for my customers. That's one thing. Like I don't have a problem. I'll bring a receipt for materials. Here's that, and then we talk about labor from there.
Yeah.
But it's, well, back to your question, I guess. The technology, some of it is pretty cool. Some of it's just mostly a headache.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of things they come up with that make it seem like anybody can do, that anything should be possible.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, we had
for that to be so, it has to be, everything has to be right. I mean, it is possible, but there's a long process to get it to where it's possible.
and like those dimmer switches he was saying has a lot of tricky wires. You got to do it all right. And we had a friend say she was trying to do it herself. Directions off the box should be pretty easy. And then she called him and said, hey, so I tried and I don't think I hooked it up right. And then it's even more of a headache because you don't know where she started or went to or where she connected what to. So then it's even additional lengthier process trying to figure out that troubleshooting.
And those switches are 2 or 3 times the size of just a regular outlet switch, and they take up the entire box. So a lot of times getting the wires back in to the box that they came out of, people are like, it doesn't fit right, and then they put them in crooked or they jam them in there, and they're like, all out of alignment with the rest of the wall and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, sometimes you're right. Function isn't always worth it.
Or they cut the wires too short. That seems to be a thing where he gets in there and there's not enough wire to get to the connection. And he's having a hard time.
One thing I will never understand is some guys just don't care about the next guy. Yeah. And while you might save money cutting the wires in a new home in an electrical or like an outlet box for a plug down to 1 inch, if you ever go to change the plug out, you can't even pull the plug out of the wall with the wires connected to it. So not only is it more work for the homeowner, but for the next guy, they have to pull a whole nother circuit in or a whole nother line in for that plug.
Yeah.
It's just, well, I don't know. That's
inconsiderate.
Right.
Be a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we always try and be courteous and think about the next guy. That's one of the biggest things. And I think that goes for all trades, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always going to be somebody that goes behind you, whether you do it right or not. Just years later, it's going to need to be changed
You're
or
not going
worked
to be
on.
here forever.
Right. So, yeah.
Have you had any trouble with these USB plugs? Have you seen these? The power outlet plugs?
So, personally, we installed a whole bunch of them in the hospital.
Okay.
But, as far as complaints go, no, I've never had any complaints with them.
And they wire up just like a regular plug, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool devices.
Yeah, they're expensive.
I think they run like $30 to $50 depending on what kind you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, you can buy a regular plug for like 40 cents.
You would be surprised at some of the stuff we put in these houses.
Yeah, I know.
For upgrades too.
But I tell you what, man, if I don't have to look for one of those charging blocks and I can just plug it right in, number of times people buy new charging blocks is like, might as well pay $30 or $40 for the outlet.
No, we put one in our kitchen when we remodeled it. It was, we just did the one.
Yeah.
It's convenient, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It took a full paycheck.
I know that when we were installing them at the hospital, they walked faster than we installed them. They probably bought 5 cases when they only needed 1 case of them. Yeah, but
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really, really convenient and cool.
Yeah.
Well, now you don't only just charge your phone with it; you charge anything.
Everything, yeah.
With it.
So many things.
Well, and like a lot of the new electronics that you're buying, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like almost all of them have, they're all USB powered.
Yes.
man, so yeah, for me those are great. I buy a lot of flashlights, headlamps that are all because I can charge them in the truck on the way to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I get in the attic and I need a headlamp, I just charge it on the way there. I don't have to go buy batteries for it.
That's right.
It makes a lot of sense. But we have now crossed over the 1 hour mark, so we could probably keep going, but we probably need to respect the listeners' time.
Yeah.
Anything else we hadn't talked about yet that you guys want to make sure we covered?
No, man. Thanks for having us on the show.
Of course. We'll have to have you guys back because we clearly got lots of questions.
Well, we're not done.
We're not done.
I mean, we could definitely go on. There's so many branches and things to cover.
Well, but we haven't even done the final 4 yet.
The final 4.
Yeah, I didn't even get to say it right because I'm incredulous right now.
I know. They're halfway out the door.
I know.
We got to grill them.
No.
All right. Well, so you've listened to our podcast before, so you know that we always ask our guests these final 4 questions.
It's very polite of him to use the we there.
Well, yeah, mostly me because he can't remember them. I have no idea. Like the last couple of months, I've been out a bunch, doing football, and he's had to do some episodes without me, and I'm like, how'd you get the final 4 done? I have no idea.
I wrote them on my hand.
Okay.
Nice.
About
Good
right.
job.
That's about right. So anyway, 4 questions, and we'll let each of you answer them. So we'll just start with the first one.
I kind of feel like we should separate them like the Newlywed Game and see if they get the same.
That would be awesome. Answer for the other person.
We've had like 11 years of.
Well, they've been together since 15, 16. Like,
So
did y'all know each other before then?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, it would be interesting, but we're not going to. First question.
that's right.
Maybe if we had more time.
All
Next
right.
time.
All right. First question. What's the must-have tool you won't leave the house without?
So there's actually 4 of them.
Oh.
If I can say 4.
Sure, why not?
Overachiever.
So my side cutters, we call them Kleins to
Okay,
cut
yeah.
the wires with.
What do you call them?
Kleins.
Kleins.
Yeah, but okay, so
It's really the brand name.
yeah, I was gonna say.
okay.
Let's take a moment here because this is absolutely hilarious to me. Now, maybe it's just the way it is, but from what I understand, like Klein's just a good tool. I mean, it's a good quality brand name of tool, but electricians won't use anything else.
So my Kleins are actually a Greenlee brand, but only because
Not even
when I
Kleins.
was in the union, Kleins, same thing. I mean, you
they
on a
cost a
job
lot.
with a whole bunch of people decide they need them more than you.
Yes.
So I bought some off-brand tools that are just as good. I still call them Kleins.
Yeah.
And I actually got to hold on to them. I've
There
had
you
the
go.
pair I have now for like 7 years.
They hadn't
just-
wandered off.
I do think it's hilarious because most electricians, they're like, I'm only going to use Klein,
Man.
which is fine, but they call them Kleins. Like it's like buying Kleenex, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably actually using Puffs, but you call it a Kleenex. Can I have a Kleenex? I don't know. We only have Puffs in our house, so. All right,
So
sorry.
like Twizzlers and
Oh,
Red
you're
Vines, is that the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Although no respectable human being eats those, but other than that, it's
You mean
fine.
either one?
Either one?
Like, finally, something we can agree on.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Good. All right. Sorry. So your side cutters.
So yeah, so side cutters, a screwdriver.
Insulated. Right.
Yeah, they're insulated, and it's a 6-in-1, so it's Phillips tip, flathead,
Okay.
a square tip, and then a level and a tape measure.
All right.
There's not many jobs I can't do without those 4 tools.
Okay.
And I would say a tick tracer, but I mean I can figure out pretty quickly if the wire's hot or not.
Yeah. You put your tongue near it,
There
and
you
you
go.
can figure it out, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, what about you? What are your must-have tools? I mean, he had
Him.
4, so
Him.
I love it. No, that's good. That's good. All right. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna go do some work, then
I'm not doing it.
oh, absolutely, you do not
She's
want.
excellent on the sidelines.
Hey, I will cheerlead all day, or
Hey.
get him out of tickets when he gets pulled over for driving too fast to his job.
Hey, you know what? Everybody's got to have one of those people, right? Cool. All right. Second question. What's a job you've walked away from? Now, we're every single episode we have to qualify this, but you've already heard the qualifier before because you've listened to our episodes before. So it can be a career, doesn't have to be. What's a job you've walked away from?
Like a job that I was hired to do.
Yes.
Oh,
Or just even something around your house that you like.
I
Well,
ain't doing
let
that.
me tell you that.
no.
not
So
doing that.
my first job was at a Carter's Country shooting range in Spring. Dream job. Would still kick myself every day for it. But
Where we first met.
Ah,
yeah. So we got to put on scopes for people, sight in laser sights, help teach the CHL classes, and pull ski for people. Great job. However, I was the lowest man on the totem pole, and one day someone just completely trashed the bathroom, and it was stuff everywhere. And they told me to clean it up. I was making $5.15 an hour, so that was the first job I ever walked away from. I
Not
think-
doing that job.
Not at all, man. And I was there from 15 to about a year and a half. But that's the only job I've ever walked away from.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Cool. What about you?
That's a tough one. I carry a lot of titles, but I guess the only one that I've really just walked away from, I do a lot of graphic design over the internet. And so one of the things that I do is funeral programs, actually. And anyways, I had a customer who, one of those people that you can't ever be happy, but I try to be nice about things because, everyone grieves differently.
yes.
But it got to the point where, because I didn't choose a different floral design in the sample that I showed her to see if she liked it, I ruined her life, and she was so upset with me, and how could I do this to her? So I just said, here's a refund. I'll send you the best I can. I'm sorry. And then I walked away from that one just
So
because.
I might have been confused. I'm sorry. Was this a job that, as an electrician, that I walked away from? Or
It
Anything
doesn't,
in
doesn't
life.
have to be.
Oh,
No,
okay.
No,
Anything.
My bad.
no, it's very broad.
Yeah.
Right.
You're spot on. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a failure on our part to write the question.
Yep.
And now Craig refuses to change the question. So,
Well, so
Yeah. No, I like the question.
as an electrician,
I like the confusion.
there's been several jobs that I've turned down or walked away from without question, and I have one right now that I'm contemplating on. And it's just if the homeowner or the customer is not willing to go 100% right, then there's no way I'm even going to go meet them halfway to do the job for them.
Yeah.
Like, right now there's a job. There's a horse arena or an arena. They have 4 lights and they want 4 pole lights installed, but they want me to use the power that's been there since the 70s and it's been flooded 5 or 6 times. And the wires are all corroded and just horrible. So I don't want to put expensive new lights on this old power. And they think I'm just trying to sell them to get more money in my pocket. I don't want to do the work at all anyways. But for me, it's just a headache.
If you can't do it right, don't do it.
Right.
If you can't,
And so
back up your work.
it's either do I just throw a number out that's extremely high and then do it if they tell me to,
Yeah.
or walk away completely and tell them, hey, if you're not willing to do it right, then I don't want any part of it at all.
It
Yeah.
sucks walking away, though.
Yeah,
For
and-
anything.
but again,
you don't want
I
to
don't-
do that, but
Yeah.
you want to do it right.
I've dealt with situations like we can talk off the air later on.
number 3.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
No, it's fine. How do you wind down at the end of a long day?
Well, I up until about a month ago, it was working out, but now we just come home and sit on the couch and we're lazy.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, well, she works after she gets home from work and is constantly working. So I sit on the couch and watch TV and I'm lazy.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Love it.
What ended the workout?
Time.
And time just got
Tired
really
and time.
busy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I hear you.
And if I can't eat right and I can't, it goes hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
Just eating right, working out, having time for it. If I can't do one, I typically don't do the others.
Yeah.
Understandable. All right. And you?
Play with my dogs.
Okay.
There you go.
We get in the floor and we wrestle, and I look like an idiot. And I don't care.
Sounds awesome. What kind of dogs?
They're mutts.
Oh, nice.
Yes, the best.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Last question. Kind of. What's one of the best pieces of wisdom or advice that you've ever received?
Job related?
Life, job,
Up to you.
philosophical, religious. We don't care.
I'll say job related, and just never trust who you're working with. If they say that they turn the wires off, test it yourself. And I don't know how many times I've done it to my buddy where I've turned the wrong breaker off on accident, and he thinks he's working something that's not hot, and he gets shocked.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Fortunately enough, he's never done it to me.
Oh.
It makes me feel horrible every time I do it to him. But yeah, that's the number one electrician rule is always test everything for yourself. Don't trust anybody when it comes to something like that.
Yeah.
And make sure it's dead if you're not comfortable working on it hot.
Nice. I like it.
And I would say one that I live by, it's a scripture, but I think it can apply to everyone, even if you're not a believer. But it says, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? And that's definitely something that I think can relate to any area of life, whether it's your finances, whether it's building a business, whether it's trying to figure out how you're going to get from A to B, or, car trouble, AC trouble. Really, there's no reason to worry. It says, tomorrow has enough worries of its own, so don't even worry about it. He says, I feed the birds and I clothe the field, so I'm going to take care of you too. But I definitely love the thought of, what's the point of worrying? It's not going to help, and it's not going to add another hour to your life.
No.
So that's definitely kind of something I go by day to day and, stick with.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So the last question, that really probably the most important question that we ask, and how do people get a hold of you if they want to contact you?
Do you want people to contact you?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yes,
I will
we
say
do.
I missed the days of getting on Facebook and it wasn't work. But probably 90% of people contact me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because if they don't do it on the new builds page and they send me a message, it goes to a different folder
Yeah.
that gets buried behind all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You don't get notifications for
Right.
it, so then you just got to check it every now and then.
Yeah. No, it happens all the time. Yeah. It's kind of the weird defect in their system.
Right.
You
I
would
don't
think they'd
understand
fix
it.
it by now.
But that, or they just call me on the phone.
What's that phone number?
713-751-9258.
All right.
So people
Yes,
can find
sir.
you on Facebook. Anywhere else?
We do have a website.
Okay.
Newbuildselectric.com.
Okay.
It's a work in progress.
All right.
Facebook is probably the better way to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, the website has our email address also, which is newbuildselectric@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of those three ways, I'm usually pretty quick with responding. Either me or her. One of us will get back with you pretty soon.
And
Well, yeah.
honestly, this day and time where if, you leave a voicemail or whatever, he can call back after work. But sometimes texting is actually faster. If you say, hey, I just called, I was just, wanting to schedule a quote, might be easier because although he may not have service in the metal building he's working in, maybe when he takes his lunch, he'll see the text message, or maybe he can't stop what he's doing to call someone, but he can text real quick or respond to his messages.
Yeah, well, and we actually, we connected over Facebook, and I tell you, one of the things that's really helpful is like you can actually kind of go look at y'all's work, because you guys post pictures of it, and that's
Rarely. We're working
So
on
that is one thing. Some customers aren't comfortable with us taking pictures of their houses.
Sure.
Even though we're not going to post a location or take pictures of stuff that they have. And
Or you don't want to really ask. It's kind of like, hey, can I take pictures of your house? But you don't want to just take pictures without asking.
So when the opportunity does present itself, yes, we do try and take pictures and post pictures just to give some kind of insight on what we do and the quality of our work.
Yeah, it's a good place. It's a good place to check businesses out.
Right.
And see the, 'cause
Really is.
there's reviews, and they, they'll typically put up work that they're proud of.
Honestly, if I'm going to work with a company or look for a company, I don't go to Google anymore. I go to Facebook.
Yeah.
And, I look for referrals. And then when people refer them, then I go to the pages that were referred. And then I look at their stuff and look at, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of business happening on there.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, we definitely thank y'all for taking the time to come out here and be on the show. It's been really good.
Yeah.
It's been fun. We appreciate it. Y'all are hoots.
It's
Yeah,
good to
man.
have you guys on. And
Absolutely.
if you guys have not yet, speaking of Facebook, you can go follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You can send us a message at info@homeownershow.com. And what else am I missing, Kev? Oh, follow the show.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the show.
Absolutely.
Download the show.
Yes,
It's on all the platforms.
it is. Yes. Please subscribe. Leave us a review. That would be really, really helpful for us. But yeah, we really appreciate y'all taking the time to download the episode today. We hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, even though it's the holiday season, we're going to still be cranking out episodes. So,
Yep.
keep it on the subscribe and download all the time. We're here every Tuesday. And until then, we will see you next time.
See ya.